The people who lost money were not reckless investors making speculative bets. They were people who thought a bank account was the safest place their money could be. And they were the last ones standing when the structure finally gave way because the institutions and the sophisticated money had already moved. That is the pattern that repeats every single time. The people with access to information and institutional relationships feel the stress building and reposition quietly. The general public feels it last when the options have already been narrowed. Now, central banks have been buying gold for 15 consecutive years, not one or two, 15. The same institutions that manage the systems that have failed in the same way 4 times in 4 decades are moving into the one asset that has survived every version of that failure throughout history. They are not doing this because they think that everything is fine. Okay. So now let me explain why the pattern is running right now and what to do before the bridge snaps. First, let me show you what the current signal actually looks like, because this is where most people disconnect. They hear about 1987 and 2008 and they think that was then. This is different circumstances, different era. It can't happen the same way. But the loop does not care about the era. It only cares about one thing, and that's whether collateral holds. And right now, the collateral is showing stress in ways that are not making the front page of any major news outlet, but they are showing up very clearly in the data for anyone that is paying attention. Manufacturing businesses, confidence is below zero, not slowing. It is below zero, which means that the people running the businesses that produce the goods and services the economy runs on have net negative confidence in where things are heading. Consumer sentiment is barely above the lowest level ever recorded. Credit card debt in America just hit a record high, not because people are spending extravagantly. Maybe some people are, but that's not the reason. It's because they are using credit to cover the gap between what things cost and what their income covers. Oil is still elevated. The Strait of Hormuz situation hasn't been completely resolved. I know there's been the ceasefire that the market celebrated for days, and we'll see what happens with that, because that doesn't mean that the market can't go up and down. It's going to be volatile, I believe. We're going to have opportunities up and down. And honestly, volatility makes for great opportunity, as a matter of fact, even if we are looking at the scope of this long term. But Europe has approximately 6 weeks of jet fuel remaining, according to the IEA. Flight cancellations are being warned about. The supply chain consequences of sustained energy disruptions are working their way through fertilizer, food, manufacturing, and transportation at the same time. And the Federal Reserve is frozen currently and cannot cut because inflation is still running, and cannot raise because the economy is already fragile. And so we're sitting still while 39 trillion in debt rolls over at current rates, eating over $1 trillion annually in interest payments alone. Now, put all of that on top of the collateral loop framework we just covered. What happens when confidence collapses in an environment where collateral is already stressed? Well, the loop fires, asset prices can fall, margin calls hit, forced selling begins, and the people who understood what was coming are already on the other side of it before the people realize what is happening. This is not a prediction. This is a pattern. And the pattern has a very specific tail that has appeared before every major version of it in history. Now, let me just say this. I'm looking long term, right? I'm not looking at tomorrow. OK, so again, when you see stock market or crypto markets go up, down, whatever that looks like, those are just day to day things. I'm looking out. I don't have a time frame for this. I'm just showing a pattern. And here it is that usually when that pattern plays out, silver moves first. And I've discussed this a lot, but I want to keep saying it just so I can let you know and educate you. But it is the most sensitive monetary metal because it is both a monetary asset and an industrial one. It responds to financial system stress the way gold does, but it also responds to economic slowdown the way industrial metals do. So when both of those pressures are building, silver feels them before they are visible anywhere else. Now, silver's up well over 200% in the last year and is sitting at critical points. We'll see where it goes. I love silver. So I have a lot of it in some of my retirement accounts, etc. And I heard it said that silver is the fuse and gold is the anchor. So silver signals the break and then gold restores the balance, right? And so that is something you want to be paying attention to because, as I've stated, gold and silver are outside the current system as protection against the collateral doom loop playing out. And then you have XRP, which you guys know I love. That is inside of the new system being built as infrastructure for what comes after. The bridge is cracking and the insiders are moving. Just look it up. So the signals are very visible for anyone who is trying to look to see where they are and what they are. And so you don't really need to figure out whether this pattern is real. 4 decades of identical crisis has answered that. You should really, I believe, concentrate on whether you are standing on the cracking side or the anchored side when this plays out. Now, remember, the people who came through Cyprus with their wealth intact had one thing that the people who lost it did not. Their assets were outside the system before the system needed it. This is not a complicated lesson, but most people will never act on it until it's too late because the reactive self is still there. It's still making decisions. It waits, it sees, it needs certainty and confirmation. It thinks, oh, it probably won't be that bad. And so, it reacts after the fact, after they're proven wrong, right? But the strategic self acts before the moment of maximum stress and not during it. That's not a panic move. That is a structural decision made when I was thinking clearly about what the collateral doom loop means for anyone whose wealth is entirely inside the system being stressed. So when the loop fires and asset prices move, the appreciation inside of that account stays completely mine. And there's no forced liquidation to cover a tax bill at the worst possible moment. And then you also have to understand what is about to happen when the Fed chair is switched. OK, he has a plan. And if you have not checked out the plan, you might want to go check it out because they are going to pump money in this system and assets will be repriced at some point. The fundamental value will catch up to the actual value at some point, even though all markets have been manipulated. But eventually that repricing will take place. And if you have more questions about this concerning how much should you have outside of the system and how much inside of it, and what does that look like for your specific situation, that is something we can talk through in my clarity calls. These are your numbers, your existing accounts, your plan built around the environment that you are navigating in right now. And so we do discuss that in detail. The links are in the description. I want you to go ahead and drop again a comment and let me know, do you see the cracks and what are the signals? Please add to this community. I do look at the comments and it really do help everyone. Y'all know people go straight to the comments sometimes. And so they want to hear from you and I want to hear from you. Go ahead and like the video, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to learn exactly what's happening in our economy so that they can position themselves on the right side of this. Because there are going to be those who celebrate on the other side because they were educated and they started to implement ahead of time. And then there's going to be the other ones that are scrambling to catch up, and it's going to probably be too late at that point. And most people will be priced out, especially with all that's happening in our economy, AI replacing jobs. You should really be more intentional and take this time and use it very, very wisely. Manage this moment with prudence in a way that when you get in your future, you can look back and thank your today personality for making those decisions that you needed to make for your future self to be in a good position, meaning financial freedom and your family. And as always, I want you to stay wise, stay wealthy, and I'll see you in the next video.